welcome to this special mini episode of Bonnets at Dawn for the Jane Austen Virtual Con. I'm your host Hannah Chapman.
And I'm your host Lauren Burke.
And for those of you who aren't familiar, this show first started in 2017 and was originally titled Bonnets at Dawn Austen versus Bronte. We started out comparing and contrasting the lives and works of Jane Austen and the three Bronte sisters, but over time we have kind of organically evolved into a show that covers all sorts of women writers from the 18th, 19th and 20th centuries, including, to name a few, Frances Burney, Elizabeth Gaskell and Louisa May Alcott. But we do still bang on about Austen and the Brontes an awful lot.
True story. And as I'm sure you have guessed by now, I'm American and I live in Chicago, and Hannah is British and she lives in Bristol. But once, sometimes twice a year, if we're really lucky, we meet up for a special Bonnets at Dawn trip and we visit a literary home. We've been lucky enough to do interviews, audio tours, and special events at the Bronte Parsonage, Elizabeth Gaskell's house, and the Jane Austen House Museum. And as you can imagine, these trips are really, really special for us, not only because we actually get to see each other and hang out, but also because there is just something really powerful about seeing where our favorite authors lived, looking, at their writing up and close, and just engaging with all of the awesome volunteers and curators who are keeping their legacies alive.
And one of our favourite places is Chawton House, known in Austen's letters as the Great House. It was originally one of three properties inherited by Jane's older brother Edward, and after the death of her father, she lived in a cottage on the estate with her sister, their mum, and a close friend, Martha. That cottage is now known as Jane Austen's House Museum, and Chawton House has become a library dedicated to preserving the works of women writers. So you can imagine how excited Lauren and I were to visit for the first time in 2017, and you can hear all about that visit in Season 2, Episode 3. When we first heard about the Man Up exhibition that Chawton House put on this year, we knew that it absolutely warranted a second visit, so I hopped in the car and headed down.
And today we're going to take you with us behind the scenes at Chawton House. First, you're going to hear a clip with Hannah and the executive director, Katie Childs, which I really loved because you guys are just, chatting about Chawton House and the view, and it's lovely. And then you're going to hear a clip from the tour of the Man Up exhibition from curator Cleo O'Sullivan.
Jane Austen's house on another day, and then they come back and see us, or just run
I
around
remember
the
the first time we came doing the walk from the cottage, around the corner and up the drive. It was quite like a powerful moment because you just know that that's a walk that she would have done, and the view hasn't really
changed,
has it? I mean, there's like some cars.
No, there's the road is probably, ironically, the road is probably less busy than she knew it. Yeah. Because that was the main road down to Gosport. It's a dead end road and there's bypass, but it is almost that unspoiled.
Yeah, it really takes you back.
View. Yeah. And it is just especially the view from the house back down the drive. Yeah. But you're right, that walk that she would have done repeatedly, and she writes about kind of wandering up to the house and wandering around the grounds and things like that. But that view up with the house, the stables and the church, and then the view, actually pretty much the view we've got if you look out of here down towards where the barn is. There would have been a barn, not that barn, but there would have been a barn there. The walk, the lime walk, the ha-ha. It's all very similar to that kind of view that she would have known, but also her nephews and nieces would have known as well. So it's kind of spine tingling sometimes when you think about it, how little it's changed. Well, you can go to Jane Austen's house and see how she lived and where she wrote, and that's incredibly powerful. And what we tell a completely complementary story, which is that context around what were her influences, including this house and grounds. And who were her influences? One of the really special parts of the collection that we have here is the remnants of what was Godmersham Park Library. So about 500 or so books. But the complete catalogue from 1818 as well, which was really thorough. Was how somebody would have properly scored highly on a librarian degree who did it. It's incredibly thorough. And also that the Knights has such distinctive book plates. So all in all, it's a complete gift. But what's really interesting about the books that are listed in Edward Austen Knights Library in Kent is that so many of them are by women.
Yeah.
And it's hugely varied in terms of content. And the remnants we've got, and also the books that are now part of the Chawton House collection that come up at auction, and the Godmersham Park Lost Sheep Society fundraise and bring back to us. So the last one that they fundraised for and came back to Chawton House in December, which is on display in the library at the moment, is a book about India, and previously was about British trade in the Caspian Sea. And there's a copy of a book that Jane's nephew Edward, so Edward Austen Knight's eldest son, gave away when he left Godmersham Park, when they sold Godmersham Park. But what's included in it is the letter that he wrote to his friend with the gift. So there's all sorts of these things coming back, and you see, but in doing that, you just see that she had access and spent so much time and had access to all of these really broad range of authors and influences. And that shows you can't just study one in isolation. You have to be able to see across all of them.
And it kind of puts to rest all of the talk about how could she have. Not a lot of people say it, but there's little people out there who say, "Oh, she was uneducated. How could she have written about this? She can't have written it." Because, and you just think like, well, I mean, there's lots of women writers who maybe didn't have the sort of formal education you're saying is necessary. But they were all great readers, and
a decent education.
She wasn't uneducated, no. But like, there's always going to be someone saying, "Oh, it's going to be like," they'll say it's her cousin, or I'm sure like some man actually wrote it.
It's when you see what the sorts of things that she had access to, that's somebody who was, and the things that in her letters she expresses interest in finding out more about, and kind of people getting books for us. The book we had on display last year as part of a Reading with Austen exhibition was a book about the Napoleonic Wars, for example, and that she wanted to find out about, what was going to kind of educate herself a little more about what was going on. That she read Byron, and that she probably read books in French. And this starts to, by looking at the library, you start to bring together a kind of picture
and fill in almost
the
blanks a little bit,
and start to reread the novels and look at it in a slightly different way, because you can see where some of her kind of broader influences were, and to have all of those here and then find a different ways of telling that story and presenting it is really exciting.
We will talk about land owning. So this is Elizabeth Knight, and she really is an exceptional woman. I mean, I wouldn't want to be friends with her, but she is amazing. She's quite the character. She has several estates in Hampshire and in Dean and elsewhere. Apparently, every time she arrived at Chawton House, she demanded that the church bells be rung to herald her arrival. And like I said before downstairs, she's not only a landowner, she's powerful, which makes her unusual. What makes her really unusual is the fact that she seems to relish her role as a landowner. She's taking an active interest in managing her estate. So the letter we have on display here, and there's a facsimile of it at the back, but I'll just read out a little bit to you. She's talking to her steward, and there's been a bit of a windfall in some of the trees, and she's saying to her steward, someone is after these trees, and she's saying, no, these are my trees. So what I want you to do is go immediately to Chawton, cut it out, and carry it off the ground that belongs to Farmer Prior's farm. And if he opposes it, let it be at his peril. I mean, what an amazing thing to say. And she's 24 years old when she's writing this. She really is taking an active business. She has a sort of acute eye for it. And at the bottom of the letter she says, I hope now you have a good market for my bricks, and she underlines it. So she's really not letting him off whatsoever. But also what we have on display is her draft marriage settlement to Bulstrode Peachy. Because being a wife in the 18th century is pretty miserable for you. Your legal identity is entirely absorbed into that of your husband under coverture. But she's got all this land and wealth that she doesn't want to have to lose. So she's trying to protect herself legally. And what's interesting about it is it's in her own hand. She's clearly got an acute knowledge of the law and how she can use it to her advantage. So he will own the land as soon as they marry. However, she is negotiating that all the rents, all the money that comes off the land goes directly to her or her trustees. And she's also trying to negotiate to him, I'm in debt of £5,000, you have to pay it off. And what's remarkable about this particular document is that there are crossings out and additions added onto it. And at some point, clearly, it's been so sort of aggressively cut out that the ink gore has actually burnt through the pages. And sort of there's on another page, there's 12 pages worth of it, but on another page, it gets cut down from 5,000 to 4,000 to 3,000. So fine, 3,000, I'll pay off £3,000 worth of your debt. And she also makes him sign that he has to take her surname, which he does without question, because in the 18th century there's less of an issue of men taking women's names because you just take whoever has the best name. And although Bulstrode Peachy is very rich, he is from merchant stock, so Peachy isn't much of a name, as you might have gathered. And also on display here, as part of the Elizabeth Knight section, are keys from the Chawton House estate, sort of dating back from her time. And although Elizabeth Knight would never have deigned to carry her own keys, to me, keys is just so symbolic of power and ownership, which is why I wanted to include it. And an interesting thing about Elizabeth Knight, if you want to connect it to Jane Austen, Cassandra writes about someone being a right Betty Martin. And if you were a Betty Martin in the Regency and Georgian period, it's someone who's a bit uppity, they're sort of pretending to be better than they are. And I don't know if it is coincidence, but Elizabeth Knight was Elizabeth Martin. And she sort of takes on this surname, becomes very grand, the bells are rung for her. And the phrase has to come from somewhere, so why not come from Betty Martin, who became Elizabeth Knight, very grand and above herself. And connecting it again to Jane Austen, would Jane Austen have known about Elizabeth Knight? And I think it's more than likely she would have, because Jane Austen came up to Chawton House a lot to dine with her family and to see who the tenants were, etc. She would have seen Elizabeth Knight's portrait on the wall. And I think it's not a coincidence that in almost every single one of Jane Austen's novels, there's a matriarch who is in control of her wealth and bossing everyone else around, and usually without a husband as well to tell her what to do. So the most obvious one is Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
Yes.
And fans of Sanditon will know Lady Denham has had 2 husbands. She marries the first for his money, the second for his name and title. But it's interesting because in Sanditon there's a description of Lady Denham, and her portrait faces the 2 of her deceased husbands, much like Elizabeth Knight's does downstairs. But also in other Austen novels, there's Mrs. Ferris in Sense and Sensibility. She's sort of controlling who can inherit everything. So these women have control over their wealth and are using it. So surely it must have come from Betty Martin, Elizabeth Knight herself.
And we are back in the studio. So I'm definitely just going to start calling you Betty Martin whenever you get stroppy, Hannah.
Well,
love that one.
I think that's rude, Lauren. I don't think I know what it means. It's not like I'll know exactly what you're doing.
Did you know what it meant before?
No.
Is that
No.
Okay, I was like, is that a thing? Okay. Is it a British thing? No.
No, because I was listening to the story and I was like, is this like Becky with the good hair? And then I realised I just totally had no clue what that meant.
Well, now you know. Now it's an inside joke between the 2 of us. And everyone who's in on this Facebook Live right now. Okay, so got some bad news, as I'm sure you guys can imagine. Chawton House has shut down for the next couple of months. But in very, very good news, they have decided to put all of the Man Up exhibition online. So Cleo is like working on it right this very minute. And she's hoping that will be available for you guys to see on their website within the next couple of weeks. Stay tuned, because we will definitely be linking to it here and on Twitter and Instagram and all that good stuff. So one more clip for you guys. I rang up Cleo the other day because I just wanted to discuss some of their online resources and how you guys can support Chawton House while they're shut down. And here's what she said.
So we were talking earlier about the women writers' biographies, which are really, really in-depth and well-researched. Like proper academics came together to write them. So they're just so brilliant and so interesting as well. And there's loads of them, which is great. But as well as this, we had a project a couple of years ago called Novels Online. So we've got in our collection a wealth of very, very rare books, some of which are the only copies that exist in the world. So we wanted to share them. And so now's the perfect time, really. You've got time on your hands. You want to read an exceptionally rare novel, then please do. One of the books, actually, it's about Marianne Talbot. She took to the high seas, and she features in the exhibition under the soldiering category. So, and that's on display in the exhibition. But if you want to read her story in full, then you literally can.
That is amazing. I actually just went there the other day for The Midnight Bell.
Oh, a Gothic tale. Very nice.
Yes. Well, everyone knows my love of the Gothic.
Yes.
And, of course, it worked in well with our Northanger Abbey read-along.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly.
Now, what ways can people support Chawton House right now? What do you guys need from us?
Well, I suppose what we're trying to do is just keep ourselves in the social conscious as much as possible by providing lots of online content. We're doing quotes of the day and stuff. Doesn't have to be Jane Austen. Today was a Frances Burney one. So responding to and sending us suggestions and asking what you want from us is really great. But also, in a more mercenary sense, we're a private charity. We don't receive any public funding. So donations are always really, really welcome, because we want to keep doing what we're doing and keep sharing this wealth of material and keep Chawton House running, really. We've during this sort of period of crisis that everyone's suffering from, we've put our ticketing online. So we offer annual tickets. So for £10, people can come and visit as many times as they like. And you can now purchase your annual ticket online. So we are encouraging people to buy their annual tickets, and that'll still be good for a whole year, so that people can use it when we open once again.
And we are back again for the second time. Now, we don't have a ton of time, so I just want to thank everyone for joining us for this mini episode today, and obviously big thanks to Drunk Austen for organising this conference and I guess trying to keep people a little bit sane during this crazy time.
This was such a lovely distraction for me this week. So thank you guys so much for giving us the chance to sort of preview our next mini-series, which will be a big old road trip diary, taking all of you guys behind the scenes to places like Wordsworth Trust, Shibden Hall, and, of course, Chawton House. So, yeah, that is coming up for you guys. End of next month. We're really excited about it, and we hope you all enjoy. We are here in the Facebook Live, so if you guys have questions or just want to chat for a little bit, go ahead and start typing away. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye. Bye.